In a world where information seems to travel at the speed of light and traffic at a snail's pace, where the agenda of those at the helm doesn't always reflect the pressures on the streets, where the rubber hits the road, where there's queue of issues needing to be interrogated in the name of speaking truth to power.
Welcome to a place at the table,
where we set the agenda,
table the issues that matter to you,
and invite you to take a seat at the table.
Welcome to a place at the table where we act as the watchdogs of society. I'm opening the floor by saying abuse is power-based, not gender-based.
You have a point there, Aisha. Whereas, I'm convinced that what has been called a beauty pageant has more to do with Afrophobia than an objective standard. Welcome to the show, Cynthia.
Thanks, Bright. Certainly, if we were to act as watchdogs of society, we must first be informed. I will be speaking on local government elections and the path to inclusive development.
Cynthia, we share an identical mission. I'm targeting the state governments and holding them accountable. I'm saying no hiding place.
Interesting, Yinka. Well, still on the role of watchdogs, I'll be speaking out for the Nigerian media in this climate of political reporting. And I'm saying, if you still need us, then stop attacking us.
Perhaps we are in a climate of hostilities. However, let's not get it twisted. It isn't about us versus them, he versus she. It comes down to who has the power. Abuse is not gender-based, it is power-based. Nigeria is a case of one day, one drama. There's always that one thing that keeps us entertained for the day and makes us forget all our troubles. This time, it's a case of spousal abuse. Video of a woman tearing her husband's international passport that some have said might have been a skit to garner views. Whatever the case may be, and knowing that there are so many in such situations, I focus my advocacy on abusive relationships where men are the victims. I feel the searchlight is not properly on the issue of men in abusive relationships. I first saw the video on X, formerly known as Twitter, and below was my responding tweet. I keep saying this: abuse is not gender-based, it is power-based. Imbalance in power, whether physical, emotional, financial, connections, access, make some to be extremely abusive. For men in abusive relationships, sadly, they are asked to bear it like a man. Today, it is his passport she tore. Tomorrow, it can be his life she will take. There are many men in abusive relationships, and the society is dismissive of it. Men are shamed for being abused and perceived as weak, and oftentimes asked to bear it like a man. What does that even mean? That they should suffer in silence? Abusers thrive on silence. It's important that our society begin to change its perception of what male strength should look like. Let's even start with when they are young. Stop telling boys that they should not cry just because they are boys. Crying is not a form of weakness. It's a form of expressing oneself based on what one is going through. As for men in abusive relationship, there is nothing for you to be ashamed of. It is the abusers that should be ashamed. If you feel like crying, cry. And if you feel like speaking out, speak. If you feel like leaving the relationship, do so. It is not failure. It is watching out for yourself. What do you think, guys?
I think over time, because when people talk about domestic violence, the approach has always been to look at it from the view of physical and sexual violence.
Yeah.
And so many people define it, like that. And then when you're looking at physical and sexual violence, the first thing that comes to your mind is gender. In fact, if you Google right now and say gender statistics on gender, whatever, what you will see is a lot of female-based, statistics, because when we say gender in Nigeria, most people just think female.
Yeah.
But when you look at what the existing laws, the laws in Lagos State, the VAP Act and co, and you look at the definition of domestic violence, it goes beyond physical and sexual to the emotional, psychological, the verbal.
Yes.
Okay, I'm stressing the verbal part of it because that is one part of it that really impacts male, especially female to male abuse. And the reality is that there is a lot of abuse when you begin to look, when you broaden that definition, and you look at it beyond the sexual, and you realize the fact that if men report as much as women do, okay, the level of abuse that they get, the data will, reflect, the data will correct some of these things.
That we've also not created safe spaces for men to be vulnerable, to trust that whomever they are sharing their challenges with would respect it and treat them with respect. And I think we need to start reviewing even how we interact with boys. That one, it's okay to show emotions, and two, there's nothing wrong in expressing how you feel. But the issue of violence, I'm glad we're having those conversations. And I think one point I wanted to raise was on rape. Most times it's a conversation that focuses this, we don't look at how young boys, there's a lot of sexual abuse that happens to boys.
Yes.
And most times when they are adults, they realize it was sexual abuse. Yes, I'm telling them, oh, their first sexual experience, they were 12, 11, with a 20-year-old woman or two. And you're like, that was rape. You didn't have, you couldn't give consent. You were a minor. And this is what we need to, even as parents, tell your kids, if a lady, a woman is talking to you as a boy in a kind of way, tell mommy and daddy. Because we have our men who is when they are older, they realize that they were actually victims of sexual abuse when they were kids.
As much as I agree with you when it comes to the word that you use or the sentence that you use, abuse is not gender-based, it's power-based. I feel like it's also categorized, like Yinka said, right? When it comes to verbal abuse, that's where we get it the most. Like you said, like on your advocacy, she tore his passport. That's an abuse, right? When it comes to words, how women talk to us, I think one of the things that women don't understand about men is you don't understand how powerful your word is to us. Like when a woman say, I love you, and when a man say, I love you, is different.
Because most time when you can say it, you're lying.
Let's put it that way. We don't even know what we're saying. When the woman says, I love you, like you see people literally carrying taking that pep in their head. Like your words are so powerful. It could literally make a man useless, and it could also make him, take him to the next level. That's why one thing I would appreciate about my mom growing up, my mom would hardly say you're stupid or she would always find a way to say it the right way to make me have confidence in myself. Like women have so much power with their words. Like we could say something to you and it's like, oh, it's whatever. Right? But when it comes to how women speak to men, it's so powerful. And I feel like that's where the power thing comes in.
And that brings me to this new program by News Central, which is called The Proof, which is a fact-checking program. When I chanced on it on YouTube, I was quite elated because finally there's a mainstream media. A legacy media doing something about fact-checking. Having said that, so I have seen that video also where the guy is saying Nigerians forgive us is just a skit. But then I tie this to civic awareness and education. And I pray that the Nigerian immigration would do the needful and not listen to that man's plea. Why? For two things. It has to be a deterrent for others to know that once something is national property, it is not your property. It has the coat of arms of Nigeria. It is really not your property. It's it's like you adopted it in lieu, So you should take care of it. You should never mutilate it. We need to understand that because it looks like we just do these things. We quote the Constitution, but many of us have not read the Constitution. So we take these things for granted. That for one. Then secondly, also we need to be aware of what the Constitution says about some of the things we do. We take things for granted a lot in Nigeria. And then again, because of the monetization that has come to Nigeria, everyone wants to do some outrageous thing to begin to have clicks and followership and make money. But we need to just rein ourselves in a bit and consider what is human, what is kind, what is affecting the other person. Nobody is talking about those children who witnessed that scene.
Because it looked confused.
Okay, so I'm having goose pimples thinking again about the violence that it was, the emotional imbalance for those children.
The video?
Yes. You can see they looked disoriented. They were like...
They witnessed it, and the outburst by the woman, that was not acting anymore.
Before you can look out for others, you first must learn to look out for yourself. You can't give what you don't have.
You're making sense, Aisha. Is the expression of Afrophobia amongst Africans rooted in self-hate or an inability to see the beauty in ourselves? Chidimma Adetshina, a young woman born in South Africa to a Nigerian father and a Mozambique mother, recently became a finalist in the 2024 Miss South African pageant. What should have been a moment of celebration quickly turned into a controversy when critics claimed that she wasn't South African enough to represent the country on a global stage. This scandal escalated to a point where she was forced to withdraw from the competition, citing concerns for her safety and her family's. This issue isn't just about one individual. It's a reflection of a broader societal attitude towards identity, xenophobia, and national pride. The South African Department of Home Affairs uncovered that there might be alleged identity fraud by Chidimma's mother. Even if true, a foreigner alone cannot steal someone's identity without the involvement of Home Affairs. Identity theft results from internal corruption. While the government and the organizers of the pageant have tried to handle the issues respectfully, the Patriotic Alliance, a political party led by Mr. Kenny Konaun, decided to take matters into their own hands. Ahead of Chidimma's withdrawal, the Patriotic Alliance sued Home Affairs, Stephanie, the CEO of Miss South Africa, and Chidimma to interdict her participation. According to Mr. Kenny, Chidimma withdrew after realizing that the Patriotic Alliance was going to court to interdict her participation, stating she was celebrating with the Nigerians. She married Nigerian, so her heart and her soul is Nigerian. That ID should be taken from her, and she must go back to Nigeria. The situation is beyond a pageant scandal. It is a clear case of Afrophobia. Were her parents European, I don't think we'll be having this conversation. Mr. Kenny mentioned that she was celebrating with her Nigerian father with a Nigerian flag. But guess who else did that? Trevor Noah, whose father is from Switzerland. He celebrated with the Swiss flag, saying he always dreamed of performing in Switzerland, and South Africans celebrated with him. This raises a critical question about Afrophobia. Why are children with parents of foreign origins, whether they are white or Asian, not subjected to the same treatment?
There's no South African here.
Conversation this morning with my Ghanaian girlfriend about this thing about Nigerians celebrating you, not celebrating you until you receive accolades from outside. If you receive recognition from outside, then they suddenly see you and begin to validate you. What you've talked about, particularly about Trevor Noah, and the fact that he waved the Swiss flag and they celebrated him. And then Chidimma waves the Nigerian flag in celebration of his father's heritage, and she was, booed for that and judged for that. It still comes down to the fact that we Africans, centuries after all the colonization had taken place, we still haven't found the reason to band together and own an African identity. We still pander to colonialism in interesting ways. Switzerland is the white people. So yeah, Nigeria, really. That's across Africa, that's what we do. Because my friend said, oh, we do that in Ghana too.
Yeah.
So you see, we have to have a conversation about our African identity. We have to go beyond countries to that continental level when we all agree to a conversation. You talked about, I really agree with you. We need that conversation where we come together to say Africa should move ahead, should move forward. We are together. Whether you're Sudan or Sudanese or Nigerian or Cameroonian or Rwandese or Botswanese, we are one African blood.
Yes, we have this banter, Nigerian, South African, same way we have the jollof fight with Ghanaians. All of those things, they are good for vibes. But when it comes to the basic, I think that spirit of Pan-Africanism is what we have lost. And interestingly, ages ago, there was that sense of unity amongst the African race. And I remember there was this poem in secondary school by Gladys Casey Hayford. She wrote this in the 20s. She was Ghanaian at the time. It was called The Gold Coast. And one of the lines was, for yours is a glorious heritage if you're black or brown. And she had written the poem at the time of colonialism because being black seemed to be a sin, seemed to be a sin of disgust. And she wrote this poem at the time to inspire the spirit of love and pride in the color of our skin. That is what we're losing, that we place value to what is foreign, and we undervalue what is ours. And this is not just about South Africa, but even though, I mean, we know that in South Africa there's been this incident of xenophobia,
right?
Which in my mind, I think they are ignoring their major challenge of the economic inequality that is enabled by the system of apartheid that existed for ages. And even though they achieved freedom with independence in 1994, the power dynamics did not change. So you have majority of the economic powers residing with the minority white population. And then you see other Africans who come in to hustle to make ends meet, and then you start to fight them. And that is what is happening here. You forget the inequality that exists in the system that the black man had nothing to do with. And then you look at the black man and say, oh, you are the problem. And then I think we need to have that conversation as Africans. If we want to really have Africa rising, we must talk to each other as brothers and sisters. The border lines we have were lines drawn by colonial masters. And so we have brothers and sisters across different nations within our continent.
Spot on, Cynthia, spot on.
With the South Africans, it's not banter. We don't have banter with them. We banter with Ghanaians, Cameroonians, Senegalese. The South Africa, there's something vile and evil about that whole dynamics. There's such anger and hatred. So it's no longer just, banter. I saw someone who wrote a tweet while this was all going. He said, when we do this thing with Ghanaians, it's fun. But he said, I'm afraid with the one that has to do with this. Because you can see,
interestingly, we intermarry a lot with South Africans.
Because you can marry
women love to Nigerian men, apparently.
But that's also one of the things.
That might even be the problem.
That's one of the problem. That is
it's part of the problem.
That might be the problem.
Right there, you can talk to your women. Stop marrying.
Men go to fight war. So that they can protect their women. We will go there.
So you're carrying them away, and then I saw one that said the moment they start going out with Nigeria, that day there was something that somebody said about
spending on them.
He said something about whether they are paying the women now, they are giving them access to do something, or they are paying them to be their girlfriends or stuff like that.
Take care of them.
Yes, they take care of them.
Because they like to spend.
Thank you.
We do.
So which is something that is not common.
How much is money?
Balling. Premium or not. Now you know. Okay, so back to this. So first of all, the thing is this. Before they found out the mother wasn't South African, this whole thing have started. So let it not be made to look as if it was when they found out she was before the mother probably had identity theft or whatever. The whole business started from the father is Nigerian, so she's half Nigerian. That's Nigeria, and then she's coming, and in some of the comments you see they just felt she was going to win. And they felt if she won that, they would not hear the end of it. Oh, it's Nigerians again coming to take this away from us. So I think, one, there's that issue of scarcity mentality within the South Africans, where they feel that if Nigerians are there to take something away from them, and if they take it away, they can't get it. So that's also one of the things. The other thing I would say is the fact that You know, there's something about people. There are certain people that when you help someone, and then the person is feels beholden to you, there's an anger that comes from that. And I think whether South Africans want to admit it or not, the role that Nigeria played during the apartheid and ensuring getting their freedom, there's this anger that they have towards us, that no matter what their story is going to be like, there was a Nigeria that was a big brother.
And there's something you said that I wanted to just highlight. When it comes to, I think a big thing, you said, talk about scarcity, I think the big problem there is miscommunication. Because one of their ministers actually came out and said that every skilled foreigner that is employed in South Africa creates jobs for 1.25% of South Africans.
Oh no, they don't
But
say
those
that.
things
They
don't
say
come out.
you take away.
Yes, and Nigerians,
And Nigerians are the most skilled immigrants in South Africa.
immigrants.
So, but these things don't go out,
Yes.
right? So
But they say that we take the
wanted to
jobs
add that
away
in.
from them.
Okay, so let me just, well, I guess wrap this
Neither
up.
here nor there.
Funke spoke about neocolonialism, and I actually wrote that down. And I think that we can capture it within that, context of neocolonialism, neo-appetite mindset. And so the emphasis here is not white to black, it's basically black to black, abuse or black to black marginalization, black to black, whatever you want to call it. And it's xenophobia, it's prevalent, and it's getting more and more within Africa. And so when we're talking about this concept of neocolonialism, we must take it beyond just, white people still coming. We must also look, inwards at, to ourselves. And the way to defeat it, for me, is simple. We must push Pan-Africanism every opportunity that we have. Because we need to send out this narrative. We need to defeat this narrative of those who want to divide Africa or cause chaos and say that, look, we have to work together. We have to we have one identity, and we must work together on that. And so this message goes out to South Africans, whether we are marrying your women or not, whatever we're doing, we must look at ourselves as having we're in the same continent, and we have similar identities, and we have similar challenges. We must put our hands together as a people to defeat this mindset that has, impaired us.
Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves shall free our mind. Perhaps it's easier sang than done.
Wow, Bright. Easy or not, we must forge ahead in the interest of development. And it starts at the grassroots. The recent conversation on local government autonomy and local government election has become more prominent since the Supreme Court's decision in July 2024. Whether in favor or against, the issue of democratic governance at the local level remains fundamental if Nigeria will achieve sustainable development. Now, the Supreme Court ruled that it was illegal and unconstitutional for state governors to remove elected officials while prohibiting setup of caretaker committees to manage local government. The court mandated that the federation account be made directly to the local government and not through the states. Now, before the Supreme Court's decision of July 2024, 462 local governments in 22 states were administered by caretaker committees, a flagrant abuse of Section 7 of the Constitution. These 22 states that refused to have elections were Rivers, Anambra, which is my state, had not had elections since 2014, Imo, Kwara, Zamfara, Yobe, Ondo, and Osun. Others are Akwa Ibom, Cross River, Benue, Bauchi, Plateau, Abia, Enugu, Katsina, Kano, Sokoto, and Jigawa. Post the Supreme Court's ruling, more than 15 states have set dates for LGA elections. These states include Kaduna, Kogi, Bauchi, Katsina, Osun, Ogun, Enugu, Benue, Rivers, Jigawa, Imo, Kebbi, Abia, and of course, Anambra. Beyond issuing a date for election, the bigger question borders on the quality of the elections. First, the State Independent Electoral Commission, SIECs, are incapacitated by either overbearing interference of the state governor in the electoral process or the deprivation of SIECs with requisite funds for its operation and for the elections. Secondly, governors abuse state powers to procure mandatory victory of all seats contested during local government elections, excluding different political parties and candidates from contesting in a fair and transparent process. Thirdly, local elections witness poorer voter turnout because a lot of Nigerians have lost faith in electoral process. With the extensive functions of local government in the fourth schedule of the Constitution, building a credible electoral process will avail the people the opportunity to choose leaders based on democratic principles. However, Nigerians and stakeholders must begin demanding accountability at the state level and demanding transparent, free and fair election across the 774 local government areas.
First of all, let's start with, as much as we criticize government, right, which is fine, which is our job, right?
Yes.
When they're doing something wrong, you call them to it. I feel like when you look at the work that was put in and the speed at which this was done, we should give the government credit. This is why. This conversation around local government autonomy started in 1976. Since then, that was when they started talking about strengthening the third tier of government. Since 1976, we've been going back and forth.
Yep.
Right? And the suit was filed May 2024. The hearing was June 2024. Yes. The Supreme Court delivered their judgment 11th of July.
It's a record
2024. In 3 months. What hasn't been achieved for over 20 years was achieved. So for that, let's give the government credit. That's one. Two, when it comes to how it works, because it's one thing for you to say we're doing something and we create a lot of loopholes in between, and that's the problem with our political system, the loopholes that we create.
As we said earlier, local government, the issues surrounding local governments had taken center stage at this table in time past. So this is just another one.
Yes.
We've had layers and layers of conversation here at the table. But what I want to bring out of it is the local government election and poor voter turnout. That's number one.
Yeah. Are you reading my script?
How do we achieve this? How do we, again, I come back to civil literacy. How do we get our people to understand that this is where it matters most? And if you're not voting at all, make sure you vote at this local level, because this is the one nearest to the wards. The local government is a constitution of the wards, and this is the very grassroots we're talking about. So we need to begin to recreate and, innovate about how to make our people understand why governance, democratic governance at that level is important.
Thank you for your advocacy. I think it touched on a very important aspect of the local government autonomy, because when we talk about local government autonomy, a lot of times, maybe you forgive us for thinking like that, we look at it strictly from the financial part of it, them having access directly, to their funds and all that, which is, I think, a very important aspect of it. But you brought in the elections part of it. And if they are truly autonomous, then the process of electing a local government chairman, or chairman, must also be seen to be transparent
critical
and autonomous as well. And that also means that the funding must also represent that aspect. The same way you see that INEC has some kind of independent funding, right? we have to guarantee that. But the problem is, how do you do that? Do you do it through constitutional change, or do you do it through federal law, or do you do it through, I don't know how. So that brings that whole conversation up for us, to have. Because you see, having 60% of the local government in Nigeria under caretaker committees, 462, that's 60%. That's a big red light, amber signs going off. So we really, really need to look at that. And this is what I think, and this is where I think that we can come up with some kind of solutions to it. You mentioned the poor voter turnout, yes. And I think that that's a key component of it. As long as there's poor voter turnout, I can guarantee you that the governors will always have the day.
Yeah,
that's
true.
For me, local government autonomy, I've always wanted that. It's something that needs to be done. Let everybody get there. Let's know who it is that we are holding accountable. Of course, on the issue of poor turnout also. Yeah, because people can't really relate with what is happening. They don't know. Even Abuja, most people don't even know when it happens. Though in the case of Abuja, it's INEC. It's INEC. I've voted. Yes, it's INEC that
voted for local government?
Yeah, sure. Local government. I go.
Who
I
do you
vote.
vote
for?
Who's your local?
Is it my vote you want to?
My question is
not
who is the local government chairman for Abuja?
Abuja.
Yeah.
Abuja Municipal Area Council.
Who's the person?
I don't know the person.
Do you know
actually.
the person?
I don't know the person's name, but I know who I voted.
To come to me.
No, but I
don't even
I
know
wanted
these
a
people.
woman to win. It was
We don't even know these people. That's the crazy thing. I just want people that actually connect. Like, we need to know who they are.
No, but this is the talk. It's exactly what I'm saying. They really don't have impact in your life, and so you don't bother to know them.
But they do now.
No, they do, but you don't feel it.
Yeah.
You don't feel it.
What about all those guys that will be blocking you on the road and collecting?
It's them. It's part of them. They have
departments.
They will stop.
So I would say you have to put this in your life. It's like waiting to happen.
And so if there's anything we're learning is that we must beam our searchlight on that particular process and get local elections right. We mostly agree that leadership is a key factor for development. Therefore, all eyes must be on the electoral processes.
Cynthia, did I hear you say that Nigerians must begin demanding accountability at the state level? I'm here to answer that question. Recently, a video surfaced of Governor Bala Mohammed of Bauchi State blaming the federal government for hunger, unemployment, and education. He had a lot to say, but he ended his diatribe by throwing a challenge to the president. He said, and I quote, "I've heard some ministers of the federal government are saying we have been given 500 and something million. How much did the federal government make, and what have they done with it?" Now, as a typical Nigerian, I wish to take up the challenge and answer Governor Bala's question with a question. Governor, how much have the states made, and what have they done with it? According to Jay-Z in his song, Reminder, men lie, women lie, but numbers don't. From July 2023 to June 2024, the total revenue available for the Federation Account Allocation Committee distribution, called FAC, was 21.94 trillion. Out of this amount, 7.4 trillion was allocated to states and local governments. If we had derivation and refunds, this figure shoots up to 10.2 trillion, which makes up 46% of revenue. This is an increase of 60% year on year. Go and verify. Nigeria practices a system of government called federalism, where both the federal government and state government share power. The Constitution divides this power into three lists, namely the exclusive list, the concurrent list, and the residual list. While the exclusive list is exercised by the federal government, the powers of the concurrent list can be exercised by both the federal and the state government. This includes education, healthcare, agriculture, tax, road, etc. For instance, states and local governments are largely responsible for secondary and primary school education, as well as primary health care in Nigeria. Also, of the almost 200,000 kilometers of road networks in Nigeria, only 18% is owned by the federal government. The state owns the rest. Many workers pay their income tax to the state government and not the federal government. 85% of VAT and the electronic money transfer levy, popularly called stamp duties, collected by the FIRS, is also going to states and not the federal government. So if there's any entity we should be challenging to show their workings, it should be the state and the local governments. The days of hiding behind Big Brother in Abuja are over. We must demand accountability from governors. Otherwise, they will keep insulting our intelligence like Governor Bala just did. Aisha.
Governor Bala, you should be ashamed of yourself, honestly.
Thank you.
Please, please, please. We hold the federal government accountable when we need to.
Yes.
Why are you laughing now? You should be ashamed of yourself.
Should be ashamed.
And I said that I think it was the 2019 election, that any government that all they would think about is how to go to Abuja and collect money. They have no business being governor. What has he done with his state? In what way has he used the money, like you said, the money that have been given to him, and improved the lives of his people? And I think I saw somewhere whether he would say he's declaring to run for presidency or whatever it is. And when did he leave? When was he not part of federal government? Was he here to tell us that about federal government and all of that? Yes, we know where we hold federal government accountable in terms of security. They've not provided security for, for enabling environment for a lot of things to thrive. But Governor Bala has no business looking at federal government. He is the problem of his people. And the fact that his people are suffering, he is the problem, and he should take responsibility and stop abdicating his responsibility to federal government. If I'm in office, how dare I? I shouldn't be looking at anybody and complaining. I should be fixing whatever I can fix within my place. See, Governor Bala, just carry yourself, enter your office, begin the work.
Wow. I think our governors need to stop this crybaby effect. A lot of times you hear governors say, the federal government, the federal government, the federal government. And I'm like, the Constitution gives you powers. You have resources allocated to you. You're also supposed to make your state economically viable. What are you doing to meet those? A lot of times, we don't see results from that. And I think there are 2 points for me. One, we've over-focused our attention at the national level. And most times, everyone is calling National Assembly president. I think we need to move our advocacy to the state level, become as fierce as we are at the national level, to hold our governors accountable. And I say, I'm not even calling state assemblies now, because let's be honest, the governors are dictators roaming the streets of governance. And why do I say that? You go to a state, you have the governor influencing and determining what happens in state assembly. So you have governors who are, like I say, they become emperors and dictators, and that is not democratic. Governor Bala and every other governor that likes to cry, please stop deceiving Nigerians. Go and do your work in your state. If every state governor functions and uses the resources that let's say they don't even generate internal revenue, but if you use resources you get allocated to you to do the right work, I promise you there will be development in every state of the country.
And I want to reiterate that, just as Cynthia said, the holiday is over for the state governors. Nigerians have pampered you enough, and it's now time for you to deliver. I love also, Yinka, that you mentioned that secondary and primary education is in the hands of the state governors. And so I'm going to hold them accountable as someone who works in the menstrual health sector. The toilets are not available. Many schools don't have water.
Yes.
So when you're asking the states, what are you doing with the money? I want to know what you're doing for the schools, because this is where we have our children, and this is where your children are not. Because for many of the governors, and indeed our legislature, their children are outside Nigeria. So in tracking the money, we want to begin to see what suburbs, which are the purview of state governors, are doing in providing basic amenities in schools. And I say this because I'm also advocating for menstrual pads for our girls. I said here some time back, the last time I was here, that what does the Nigerian child benefit from the government? So state governments, what will it take for you to provide sanitary pads for girls in school? So we're talking about menstrual equity now. So I'm marrying education and health at the state level.
Yes.
Tell us what you're using the money for and begin to act now.
This is a problem that we all have, including me, right? We live in Abuja, we live in Lagos, and most times we're actually disconnected with what is happening on ground. When it comes to this particular person, I know because I have worked within this state. I worked closely with him when he was Minister of Abuja, and I can highlight a couple of projects that we did.
Full disclosure.
Like you said, numbers don't lie. So I'm going to give numbers, and I'm going to give facts.
Okay.
When it comes to any country or any state, the key thing that makes it work for citizens is infrastructure and education. When it comes to infrastructure in Abuja, he initiated the light rail project in Abuja. So he did.
No, continue.
Right, for the one from Kaduna, from Abuja to Kaduna, he wasn't initiated that. The ones within Abuja that probably hasn't started working yet, he wasn't initiated that. I was there when they launched that project with Goodluck Jonathan. But I don't want to keep going down under the Abuja part, but let me just go straight to what's happening in Bauchi. The reason why I think he has the right to come out and talk about these things is because of the work he has done in Bauchi. If there's any northern governor that has worked within the north, it's Mohammed Bala. When it comes to let me finish. I have proof. When it comes to road infrastructure, he has significantly, constructed a lot of new roads and then fixed the old ones. A lot. You can go and verify. Go to YouTube, click on videos. There are videos there that shows you what he has done when it comes to road construction. When it comes to even schools, education, as you're talking about right now, he has done a lot when it comes to constructing new classrooms, and also specifically he's done a program that increased the enrollment of girls in school. That's a specific program. When it comes to supporting small businesses, I've been in meetings where they're discussing on how they can provide renewable energy for small businesses. I have been in meetings where I've seen execution of projects where they support talented young people with resources for them to be able to create cars that can work in three-leg cars that can work in the States. So when it comes to someone that has actually worked, and I feel like that's why he has the confidence to say, how much are you guys giving us? Because he has actually worked, right? So for me, I understand what you guys are saying, and I agree with you when it comes to governors not relying on the federal government, because states can actually create their own revenue streams. If you look at states like California, right, from the LA side, entertainment, from the Silicon Valley side, technology. Within Silicon Valley, you also see agriculture. The highest production of agriculture is within California. You go to New York, you go to Michigan when it comes to factories, AGM, the top auto cars.
I'm glad you're giving us examples. Thank you, Bright.
So I agree with you, but I agree with you, but what I'm trying to say is when it comes to this person specifically, he has done the work.
I appreciate Bright because I think it brought balance to the conversation, and I think that's the point we're trying to raise here, that there's always two sides, to the story.
No, then they should have been federal government side now.
But this is not really about Governor Bala Mohammed. It's about
you called him out.
Governors. Yeah, I called him out because he did the video. This is specifically
in a James Bond way.
So this is about all the states, and we need to have this question.
Yes.
We need to pose this question to every state governor.
Yes.
Accountability is a must. We either exercise that right to hold our leaders accountable before or after we hit the streets, but exercise it, we must.
I hear you loudly, Yinka. Why then are the media being made the scapegoats when they're in fact the facilitators of this process of accountability? The Nigerian media and the climate of political reporting. Recently, I read a report that contextualized how the South African media covered its presidential elections. It examined whether the media was a mirror or a megaphone. A quote from that article says, "A society's media coverage during an election can serve to reinforce the media's role as a mirror of society or mirror to society." And this is instructive for me because it underscores the responsibility of the media in reflecting the society within which it operates. We know that the allegiance of the media is to the people, the citizens of the country they serve, just as we know that the press is the fourth estate of the realm in governance. How then did the Nigerian media arrive at that juncture where they're unloved by the government, despised by the people, and hated by the police? In reviewing the #EndBadGovernance protest and the Nigerian media, I see a disconnect between the media and the people and an organ of state, the police. A journalist safety situation room report of International Press Center states that there were 13 cases of journalists who were subjected to physical assault, molestations, and intimidation during the protest. It involved more than 32 journalists in 5 states and the FCT. Where the police ought to work in consonance with the media, we see the police preventing the press from coverage and quizzing them relentlessly, as the case of Bernard Akede. If a journalist identifies himself and has the vehicle and branded materials of his organization nearby, as it happened with News Central, what other identification does the police need? I mean, it's ridiculous. The same Bernard suffered in the hands of citizens who practically chased him away from a scene with cutlasses and clubs. To me, the line is blurred between citizen journalists who sensationalize and are partisan and traditional journalists who are trained in using objective methods in their reportage. The Nigerian media needs a re-education of the society in which it operates in order to stop this continual intimidation. It's time everyone pause to reappraise the role of the media. If you still need us, then stop the attacks.
You know, when you talk about the fact that why is it that they are unloved by the government, you're not going to love something that you're paying.
Despised by the people and hated by the police.
By the police.
So there's no hiding place for us.
Yeah,
there
wouldn't be.
There's no place to rest. There's no respite.
So the government knows that I own you, I have you, I can treat you the way I want to treat you.
Do they own us?
That's the sentiment. That's what they have on ground. Because I can tell you a lot of things. There are so many things that are happening in Nigeria today that the media isn't reporting. Because there's a media blackout. And it didn't happen, it's been on for years. And so you have government still controlling some of the narratives that are out there, per se, in our country. So these are some of the things that have gone away. And, you know, when there's that distinction between, you know, who are the real journalists and the other one who sensationalize, whatever, the line is blurred. We've gotten to a place where, just like the legislative arm of government has failed, the judiciary has failed, there's a pain that people carry that the media also has failed. And right now, it's actually people using social media that are making the media work for them, not the mainstream.
Okay, that's interesting. Yes, right? Please.
And what you're saying is absolutely true. I think
you also believe that the media has failed in Nigeria.
I think the media has failed a long time ago. I feel like when you actually even check it, how many media personalities do we have that would come out and say things with their chest? How many? I mean, apart from Rufai, right? I don't think there's any.
You have the one defending.
Maybe that's one you know.
That's what I'm saying. I'm just like when it comes to people. Actually, I'm just giving one example. Obviously, that's the only person, but they have to be more. We have to have more DG type. We have to have more Aisha.
We have Fisayo. We have quite a number of them. You don't know them.
No, I do. I do, and I watch the news. I'm just saying, compared to the
sacrifice,
compared to the level of problem, they're a drop of water in the ocean. That's what I'm trying to say. The media is supposed to be the most powerful tool for the people. The media is supposed to represent the people.
But are you aware that the media, journalists particularly, are perpetually being picked up by the government for speaking truth to power?
Like you said, and that happens everywhere in the world. That's not
So-
sorry. That should not
democracy?
No, that happens everywhere in the world. That should not be a reason why you should hold back. They are becoming part of the government to a level. That's what it looks like, right? They focus so much on commercialization than advocacy. Everybody's now trying to see how we can do programs that can get us more adverts on TV, on platforms. We can do that. That's
Right.
the truth. No,
you
that's
need
the truth.
you need money.
No,
you need money to run
I understand,
an organization.
I understand that, but you can't eat the cake. You can't. How do you say it again? You
Can't your cake and have it.
Have it.
You have to focus on one thing if you want it to work.
From a
Yeah.
human rights perspective, I connect with this advocacy, and that is because you talked about the media as the fourth estate of the realm. And in every system, especially if you think about our history of military dictatorship, if there was one institution that was attacked and where there were major threats, it was the media. So one of the tools the military dictators used, first, you shut down the National Assembly so you don't have a legislative arm, then you go for the media. Yes, you can control the courts. But the media has always been a target. And so when you hear stories of, how in those days, being a media practitioner was also like going to the battlefield. Right. And so one of the things we're beginning to see, and this is a challenge, and I will look at it from the point of institutional challenge, because there's a part that consistently over a period of time, what politicians have learned is in a democracy, it is easy to undermine rights and be dictatorial in democracy. All you need to do is to get a court order, is to get the legislation, or is to get the right people into those places to do your bidding. And that is what we're beginning to see, that while we have an active voice in the media space who still provide that kind of support we need to our democracy, because I believe that media is very important in our democracy, which is why the freedom of the press and expression is fundamental human right.
Yes.
That while we have this very strong and active voice, some of them still being arrested and locked up, we don't even get it reported enough across different states. Some of them, state governors have locked them up for what they posted in their respective platforms. That there is still a segment of that society where the government has gradually tried to infiltrate so that they begin to speak their voice. And this is the same thing, speak for the government. This is what we're also seeing in the judiciary. Because we talk about how once upon a time, the judiciary was the last hope of the ordinary man. Yeah. But we know that gradually there is an attempt to constantly undermine that institution by how people get in.
To be honest, I'm on both sides of this conversation. I think that the human rights abuses are legitimate. I think they are real. I think that there's no reason why journalists should be locked up or harassed because of the work they do. But I also think that journalists also have to be responsible in terms of what they put out there and how they are projected. There's a lot of, Aisha talked about, and it was also in your advocacy where you talked about the lines are blurred.
Yeah.
The reality right now is that mainstream media is looking to become more like citizen journalism.
I agree with you.
It's looking more like sensational, exactly. That's what they're becoming. It's becoming like and the whole traditional norms, and rules around journalists and fact checking, making sure that the information you put out there is right, it's not there again. So you see a lot of sensational stuff, posted by, mainstream media, and you don't even trust it again. So I think journalists have to be very focused, and they also have to be very professional. I wrote some things down here that during
clickbait.
That's important.
That's the most annoying part.
They have to be professional.
Yeah. Professional. During Jonathan's time, there was everything wrong with the country was being done by the Niger Delta militants. During Buhari's time, everything wrong with the country was being done by Fulani headsmen.
Not true.
Now,
totally.
The focus is more on Yoruba, Ronu, whatever. Now, I'm saying this because the media tends to focus on what sensationalizes. And so The fact that you have a politician who is on top and all that, you begin to see a lot more information, a lot more news being projected to almost serve a purpose. We have to be professional. We have to be able to project the right information. And one good example today is the emphasis that the media focused on the Speaker's bill. This one that wanted to criminalize.
Yes, the subversion.
The fact that, if the media didn't focus on that news, nobody will know about it. It will pass second reading, it will be passed, and that's it. The media needs to focus on the things that really matter to Nigerians and take us to the next level.
It has been a united struggle if we are to succeed in our efforts at building a better society. It starts with getting together around the table like this to have those vital conversations. Join us again, 8 p.m., same channel next week. Until then, it's goodbye from all of us.
Adios.
Bye.